Welcome to the December recording of Ms.Dr.Kenya. I say every month that I'm excited. For the sake of not being redundant, today I'm going to say I'm ecstatic, but it really means the same thing. I am looking forward to today's conversation. I shared with you guys last month that in the month of December, we were going to be talking specifically to a Black male educator, a Black male therapist, and a Black male student, specifically as it relates to the mental health of Black men in America. I'm excited about this particular conversation because I'm a nerd at the end of the day. And when I look at the data, the numbers as it relates to Black men and as it relates to the mental health of Black men, they're scary. They're not encouraging. Especially the rates of suicide. They have increased little by little, but after COVID, the numbers literally increased exponentially. They are 5 times higher than they were post-COVID. And so with that, I thought it was appropriate for us to stop and pause, especially with the holidays coming up. That's a trigger for a lot of people, and really, really talk to Black men to find out what they're dealing with, and most importantly, how we can support them. I want y'all to know that I have not just gathered anyone. The men that are on today's episode of Ms.Dr.Kenya are men that I know personally and I have known for a long, long time. Um, Let me not date myself because I'm not that old. I've known them for about 20 years. Let me be specific. Um, so I am going to ask them to introduce themselves to you, and I am going to start with Lawrence, and then Lawrence, we can ask now to introduce himself, and we will conclude with Charles. So Lawrence, can you introduce yourself to the people?
Yes, good evening, everyone. As Dr. Kenya mentioned, I am Lawrence. I am a Prince George's County high school graduate from Largo High School. I'm now a first grade educator at a Prince George's County public school system. And I have known Dr. Kenya for over 20 plus years, and it's a pleasure to be speaking with you all this evening.
Thank you, Lawrence. Now,
All right, hello. Good afternoon. I'm a student at Bowie High School, and I'm 14 years old, and that's pretty much it.
thank you now. And Charles.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles. I am a mental health therapist. I'm a director of an outpatient mental health clinic in Silver Spring. Um, and I've known Dr. Kenya for over 20 years. Um, Her and a couple other people were instrumental in me going into the field of social work. So thank you for that. Um, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you all again for being here. I appreciate you. I recognize that me asking you to be here today and participate in this recording has required a level of vulnerability, and I don't want to let it go unnoticed that I appreciate you for your willingness to have this conversation and to be vulnerable, really in support of other people. So thank you all. I appreciate you greatly. I'm just going to start off with a general question. Again, I do want to make it clear that this particular episode really leans into wanting to learn more about the plight of Black men, for lack of better words, in America. So I'm going to try my best not to say much because I am not the expert in that field. This is you all's level of expertise. And so I'm literally going to turn the show over and the conversation over to the three of you and try my best to be quiet as best I can. But I do want to start our conversation off with a general question, and that is going back to what I was sharing earlier. When I look at the data, and I'm sure others, when we look at the data, like it is very, very clear that Black men are struggling right now. My first question to you guys is why? Like what's going on that makes it exceptionally hard for African American men and young men to cope in today's age?
Um, I started off. I just feel like because I'm in the middle of the younger and the older generation. Honestly, it starts with the music. It's the music that's very influential today, and it's just specifically speaking towards the hip hop culture. Unfortunately, it's the lyrics that has been spoken, and it's also the actions that's shown behind it. And for some odd reason, that makes the younger crowd um, feel that it's okay to do the necessary things that they're saying in their lyrics. And then also on the flip side of it, I also feel like it starts at home as well. Just coming up as a younger adult or toddler, excuse me, if you will. It's the words that you say to your kids, even when you're frustrated, it sticks with them. And when it sticks with them as they get older, they remember those words and they remember the things that you said. They remember the actions that you showed after you said those things. And I think that kind of hindered them with wanting to do and learn and want more out of life because this is all they've been told since coming up. So the music is just automatically like, hey, this makes sense. Unfortunately,
Yeah, I agree. I think music it plays a huge part in it. It makes me think about this hip hop group named Dead Prez, and they mentioned that um, music is influential, um, and sometimes it seems like it's not, according to them. So that's just interesting. But I think that I think it is so complex when you talk about how black men and black young boys are struggling right now. Um, you know how people are raised, what's being taught to them at home, what they're seeing at home, what they're seeing on television, different stereotypes that are put out there, and sometimes some people they just try to live up to the stereotypes, especially when they're not um, sure about who they are. And when you think about teenagers, they're trying to find out who they are. And as you move on to older adulthood or early adulthood, that's when that kind of solidifies and people are in those modes and they continue in those mindsets and those behaviors. So um but I think that I don't know. It's so complex. I think it's so much. You when you go back, you think about slavery. So well, we always talk about slavery. We talk about black men, but that's how things were shaped. And each generation, they're dealing with. Um, I think as we move farther away from slavery, we're we're not dealing with as much as an impact slavery had on us, years and years ago. But I think some of the institutional issues are still playing a part. But yeah, I'll end with that.
All
Yeah.
right, so with the younger generation, what they, I feel like the younger generation hears a lot about killing and other thing that rap, other things that rappers talk about, and as Lauren said, I think they think it's okay to do those things because they look up to those rappers and they're trying to be like them. And also after the pandemic, uh I don't think like black men got the support that they needed to like the emotional support they needed to like feel okay. And I think overall people think that that men are supposed to like feel be feel strong and they don't need that mental support as maybe like as a woman may need. So I think that may be a reason of the suicide rates and things like that.
So now, thank you for bringing that up. And Dr. Kenya, thank you for talking about suicide. I want to share something personal that happened in my family November 1 of 2022. So each morning, I spend some time with myself, just get myself centered for the day. And I don't let anything impact that. It's really early in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. But I got 3 phone calls back to back early that morning. And usually when you get phone calls early in that morning, it's not good. So my sister tells me that daddy just committed suicide. And this was in Athens, Georgia. I'm here in Bowie, Maryland. And there were a lot of things that went through my mind when that happened, but there were no signs of my father being depressed or not wanting to live. He was very, I mean, he was a jokester. He looked at the brighter side of things, and it was puzzling to me. I said, well, as a mental health professional, why didn't I see signs? But he didn't show them. He suppressed whatever he was going through because clearly there was something going on in his life uh, that he felt like he couldn't deal with. And this was right after the pandemic. Well, I guess right after the height of the pandemic, I would say. And he was a person that liked to be out, engage, and during the pandemic, he worked from home for almost 2 years. And I think that impacted him. Being in the house, not being able to move, not being around colleagues, not feeling as though, and it seemed like he wasn't as productive in his work, according to, my mother. And so there were a lot of things going on that I found out after the fact that I was like, oh, okay, those were signs I didn't know before. So, I think, those numbers went up mainly because of isolation, and people really having to deal with certain things that they could refocus their attention on otherwise. So, for example, if you're dealing with depression or anxiety, I can talk with my colleagues or get the support that I need from them, and I don't have to think about that or deal with that. So, yeah, but that is, those suicide rates going up, it is alarming. I think it's going to be extremely important for Black males, Black young males, and just people in general to ask for help when they need it.
Well, first of all, let me stop by saying my heart goes out to you. I had no idea that you had that experience. And I almost feel like had I known that, I may not have asked you to participate in this particular episode, but I do appreciate you for sharing that and being willing to share that with the masses. I do want to tap into something that you said and that now hinted upon, and that is the pandemic. And so when I think about the pandemic, yes, I believe that most of us think about COVID and the fact that we were all kind of forced to shelter in place, for lack of better words, right? And, we were stuck in the house. But I feel like for African Americans and for African American men in particular, we had two pandemics. And that is, we had to watch the death of George Floyd, right? And while we normally we have seen many, many, many Black men get killed on TV, but we were able to, in those moments, distract ourselves, go to the movies, hang out with friends, laugh, talk, do whatever it is that we do when we're having an experience and we're able to distract ourselves. But we could not do that during the pandemic when we watched George Floyd literally die in front of our eyes. We had to sit with that thing. And I feel like for African Americans, African American men in particular, it sent a very, very loud signal, perhaps, that your life does not matter. And I feel like it has a lot to do with why the helplessness and hopelessness that we are currently seeing with Black men. I don't think that it's something that is happening like consciously, like right on the surface, but somewhere in our psyche, what that particular event did was kind of solidify for us that our lives, even in 2021, 2022, 2023, that our lives still do not have the value that other lives have. Do you think that the pandemic that Black people experienced, and that is the death of George Floyd, do you think that that is playing a role in the increase in hopelessness and helplessness that we see in Black men and Black young men?
Charles, you kick it off, and I'll follow up after. I just don't want to. You go ahead, Charles. On the house, one of your own.
Okay, yeah, I was only going to let you all go. I definitely, I think so. I think, I think that I just had a couple other things run through my mind in terms of what we experience as Black men, um, on in the media, but just watching a large Black male being, I mean, because he was tall, stocky, um, get the life taken out of him by officers and people who are supposed to, serve and protect. Um, it was quite shocking. I think I'm pretty much still in shock now. Um, and for me, even as a professional Black man, when I'm driving and I see a police officer, I get concerned. And whether it is, a Black police officer, a white police officer, I get concerned because of that image that I saw. And I mean, it's it's quite alarming to be, just having like trauma, like physical responses to a visual as I drive to work every single day, because I see police officers every single day and I have that same physical response. It's like my heart rate increases. I straighten up, my body gets stiff. So, for me, yes, and I'm just imagining, what that is, for other people. And some people, they will, go the other way. They say, well, if I'm not going to get protected by, by police officers, then I'll just be lawless. And I think it has that effect as well. And I know, people that I see regularly have mentioned that to me. So.
So I know for myself, Charles, and that was very, very excellent too, by the way. I know for myself, ironically, I learned the definition of being a Black man in America in this house that I'm in, from my uncle, may he rest in peace. And when I was being taught this, this Black man in America speech, I was very young, and I was coming from a very urban niche, if you will, ghetto community. So I had no idea what he was talking about. Now fast forward, a lot of these, situations had come about, targeting us black males. And I think that what kind of alarmed me to like, hey, this is exactly what he was talking about once we had that sit down conversation. Only because it's more alarming to know, hey, you're a target too. It doesn't matter what state you're in. It doesn't matter who you with. As long as you have color and you know you're a black male, it's very targeting to know, hey, you can be just as victimized as the George Floyd and as any other victim that fell short to police brutality. And then also you have the black on black crime as well. We are each other's targets too. So not only the George Floyd situation opened my eyes, but it was a lot of other activities that I saw in the news that was like hey, it's not only police, it's us killing each other as well. So it's more so us being more knowledgeable of police strategizing for us to kill each other so that they won't have to do it. So yes, it is very alarming to know that police will target us, but we have to do our best to not try to target each other and/or be the targets. And what I mean by that is be more knowledgeable when you step out the house. And what I mean, try not to fit the description, if you will. And I hate to say that in that term, but just try not to fit that description as if Charles, as like you mentioned, you want to sit up. You may want to look that person in the eye. You do not want to short answer any questions that the officer or anyone may ask you because that may rub off on that individual wrong, even though you may not have that intent. So to really, close things in, I just feel like this whole pandemic, George Floyd, and just us being black men in America is really powerful. And to know that we have a lot of power. I feel like once we understand and stand with each other, there will be no more failure behind, those police brutalities and black on black crimes.
Mm.
Now,
All right, so
you had the conversation with your dad
about the George Floyd situation.
about how to protect yourself from a police officer if you were pulled over, for example.
Yes, I think I remember to not reach for the glove department and be respectful to the officers because if they'll have like a reason to they have a reason to shoot you if you're like they'll have a reason to shoot you if you're being I forgot the word for it. If you're being resistant against them.
Okay, were you gonna say something before I ask my question? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, oh yes. So when I saw George Floyd die, I was shocked, and I thought um that that could have been like someone else, like someone I knew, maybe like a family member. So that made me think that could like drained some hope out of like black men. So that could have increased like some like depression or made it seem like their life doesn't matter as much as other people's lives.
So, um, so we're a little over a year out from that incident, and there's no surprise that the numbers, for Black males in terms of like mental health and physical health are worse than what they were, years before. And imagery, I think, is so important. I mean, what we see, it impacts us. So we watch a lot of violence, whether it be in movies or or video games or on the news. I mean, it impacts us. I mean, those images are in our minds, and sometimes we get numb to those things, and it's it's and being numb means that you can probably engage in a lot of violent and physical activity and think that it's okay. So, it's, the imagery is, extremely important. But, I just want to ask both of you uh, who did. So now I know who you talked to about George Floyd, Lawrence. I know you mentioned that you talked to a family member about George Floyd afterwards, or was
No,
that
no, no. So it
okay?
was prior to. This was prior to my knowledge of even knowing what Black man in America was. So saying that kind of opened my eyes to this. It was like my uncle that passed away. He already not foreseeing, because this is repeated history. Needless to say, but he wanted to warn me, just as if talk with now, just had that talk, and then fast forward me saying it, I had a better understanding, because hey, everyone is a target, not just someone committing an actual crime. You can be walking down the street and you look on, and they pouncing on you. So you just want to make sure your demeanor, the way you talk, everything is just on cue, because you just never know. You
Mhm.
never know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And um, and this reminds me of like the image that we portray. So I look at now, and he expresses himself through his hair, and he loves his hair. He loves it. Um, and I think if police officers or people who aren't used to seeing hair like that um, see him, they will look at him as a threat.
Mm-hmm.
He is probably one of the most humblest people that you will ever meet. Um, and so that's something that I think we could educate others on, in terms of, it's like you don't get what you see all the time. You may
Mm-hmm.
see young boys with the pants, hanging down. I mean, when I was a teenager, maybe 14, 15, that was cool, to have baggy pants, not tight. Well, now it's tighter pants with the pants, coming down, but we had baggier pants that were kind of off of our waist. And that can be off-putting to some people.
Mm-hmm.
And it could reinforce some ideas about who people are. And
Right.
I think that it's important to not do that, because you just don't know who you're encountering.
Mm-hmm.
And also ask questions, ask questions about, you know just ask the questions that you want to know, to figure out what just to figure out who you're interacting with. um
Mm-hmm.
so now, have you had any people make comments about your hair
Um,
Oh.
at school?
at school, no, but I do, people are like telling me to like get it like twisted, like to get like to get my hair twisted.
And
Um,
is it for any particular reason?
no, no, no. It's like it's probably because my hair is probably getting longer and I could probably do something with it. And they were a lot of people just telling me to just get it twisted. So
Okay. So no negative comments about your hair?
no.
Okay. Cool.
So Charles, if you don't mind me stepping in, because you made a great point. You mentioned imagery. So I have on a hoodie and I have on a beanie. Once I throw my hood over, I could fit a description. But what you all, not you, but what they may not know, I have a high school diploma and I have a college degree, and teaching the youth. So it's crazy to know that regardless if it's your hair, if it's your outfit, if it's the way you talk, it doesn't matter. It's all about the color. And that's really the unfortunate part about this whole situation. Because now you stand for something, Charles, you stand for something, I stand for something, and Dr. Kenya stand for something. But once we step outside, unfortunately, we stand for nothing when the police or any other race, if you will, look at us in a different form.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because it's as a teacher, um, if you were my teacher, I was like, oh, well, I got the coolest teacher in school.
Exactly.
I would, and I'll be happy, and I'll be
Right.
ready to learn. I'll be in, you know, in learning in my learning stance, So, um, but other people, I don't know what type of feedback do you get from other people that don't look like you when they
So
see
that's funny.
kids?
That's funny you said that. So I try to clean it up, if you will, like during the weekday, but I still go in with a hoodie, a jacket. So I have one of those fur hoodies. I can still fit any description. But I do that only because I don't want to change my imagery for someone else. So when I do walk into the classrooms with the young kids that have broken homes or even perfect homes, they still know, hey, I have someone just like me, just like my father, just like my brother, or just like the same person that said I wasn't going to be anything, still doing something that I probably never imagined. And it's so funny that I teach first grade and they tell me all the time, hey, Mr. Brown, you're doing very well. I like you, Mr. Brown. The parents tell me all the time, hey, the kids love you. And I honestly think because they relate. And not to speak, down on any older or any woman in the education field, but it's redundant. We see that a lot, coming up. We don't see a lot of Black male educators, teaching the youth positivity, letting them know, hey, you can do this too. Also letting them know, disempowering them because they wasn't empowered. And just to see someone, like I mentioned, that's tangible to kind of push them. So I get positive feedback though, Charles, to answer your question. And it's amazing because this is my first year. This is one of the things that I was asking myself coming into this. And I feel like I have a different twist on things from what they used to saying. My principal love it though. It's not like I'm going in there, talking slang or cut jeans. No, I go in there, dressing, very nice, but I'm still showing that I'm a part of the younger / middle generation, if you will. So it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, but I can imagine that there are very few kids who were, taught in first grade that will have an African American male that would teach them. But it's different when you have an African American male than an African American male with swag. Because
Mm-hmm.
like and then you come across as someone that's like pleasant. It seems like you just like have a good spirit, and you're cool, you
Yeah, I
know.
appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's very rare. And
Mm-hmm.
at that age, I mean, they're being molded. I mean, so at they're like 5 or 6 years old. I mean, that is like you talking about imagery. I mean,
Right.
that image of my first grade teacher being an African American cool Black male is
Mm-hmm.
powerful.
Correct.
And
Correct.
if they can see that at a very young age, I think that shows them like what they can be as they
Mm-hmm.
get older. So that is just and when you said that, I was like, wow, a first grade teacher. I mean, that's
Right.
to me the perfect age to be teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not to stray away from the conversation, but I kind of wanted to jump into this because of how I was raised. Excuse me. I was raised, in a good predicament. But as I mentioned, I was in a different neighborhood, if you will. So I got a chance to understand both sides. So I was living in Marlow Heights by Iverson Mall, and then now I'm in the house where I went to high school, which is rather in a good neighborhood. So I had the Fresh Prince of Bel Air story, literally. So, and it was so perfect because, like you said, Charles, I seem very pleasant. I wasn't always pleasant. Kenny can vouch for that. I have swag because that's how I was raised, but I knew right from wrong, and I'm talking literally wrong and right. So when I talk to the youth and I see them coming from different avenues of life, I can kind of be very transparent with the conversations that I had with them. And granted, they 6 and 7, so I'm not as aggressive with the conversation, but I let them know like, hey, I've been through that too. Or, hey, it's gonna be all right. There's another day that you will be able to express how you feel to whoever that may be at that time. So being in this grade, they asked me if I want to teach first grade, and I told them yes, because like you mentioned, it's something that you will never forget. You will never forget. Like I remember my first grade teacher, when I was in trouble, I was getting popped on the hand with a ruler, and she was an older lady. So it wasn't a good memory, but it was still a memory that I had from first grade. So I want that to be very impactful, as through their journey through the education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I just real quick, I want to move through this, but now,
Right.
so you see Lawrence. How would you respond to Lawrence as your teacher?
So, first, I would be surprised because in my whole elementary school um experience, I don't think I've ever had a black male teacher, or even I did have a black teacher, but never a black male teacher. So I would be first I would be like shocked, and also I would be like intrigued, like how he would teach different from the other teachers, and I'll be like more engaged because I don't like experience this often. So
And you do see that too a lot now. The engagement is very different. When I peek around to my different pods, which is like different classes within my grade, you see the engagement. I have three coworkers and they're all women, um, and they have their old school style, if you will, of teaching. And I love it. I love it because they teach literally all day, and so do I. But I also give the kids a break, and that's what they look forward to, because that's what kind of reignite that learning process. Because if you teach kids all day, they're not learning anything. It's going in one ear and not the other. And that's one thing I'm learning. Because I also have a 4-year-old. So a lot of people say, "Wow, you do this literally all day." Yes, I do. You gotta have a lot of energy for it, because I want her to know, hey, my dad went to, he deal with me, and he goes to work, and not just a regular job. He's impacting everybody else's household as well. And that's very, it means a lot to me to know that, honestly, because you don't have a lot of women or young girls have black fathers in their lives, and I know that's a whole nother topic, but that kind of speaks volume for itself. So yeah. Kenya, I love this, by the way. I
Good.
think you got the right clue.
I'm glad you're enjoying it because as Charles was asking that question, I literally had to stop and think. And my first Black male educator was in graduate school,
Mm.
not elementary school, middle school, high school, or even college. It was literally in graduate school. So, to his point, and why I got so excited when I learned not only that you were an educator, but that you were teaching first grade students. I think that seeing you, walking into the classroom and seeing you, I can only imagine how the young people respond to it. I'm thinking specifically, I have nephews, one in high school, and then a 9 and 7-year-old twins. And I'm thinking about the twins in particular. I think that it would be a game changer for them if they walked into their classroom and saw you for all of the reasons that were described. So, yeah, thank you, Charles, for bringing up the importance of having representation, for lack of better words, in school, and how important that is, and how that can just really change the trajectory of how our children learn, simply because, like Nal said, they're interested. They walk through the door and they see someone who looks like them, represents them, and then naturally they perk up like, oh, okay, what is this experience going to be like? I wasn't expecting this. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So I do want to ask the question, as you guys are going through your day, Lawrence, you described your day, Charles, you kind of described your day. Now, if you want to describe your day, you can, but generally, I'm curious, how do you go through your day and cope with all of the things that we've talked about so far? Because it sounds kind of heavy to me.
I know for me, when I get up in the morning, uh, I say a prayer, because I know that without God, I would not be in the position that I am in. Honestly speaking, I came a long way. So, and then once, like we mentioned before, once you step out the house, you're a target. So I make sure that's included in my prayer. That once I do step out the house, that I'm not so much of a target in a bad way, but I'm a target in a good way. That I magnetize